Hello, everyone. Welcome. I wanted to take a moment to talk to two really important, valuable people in ministry here at Mid-South Catholic. They have a particular role in Eucharistic ministry. They're both Eucharistic ministers within our liturgical celebrations, but they also have a very important ministry to those who are in skilled care facilities and homebound. So I wanted to introduce to you today Jeanne Kauffman and Bob McGarry. Hi. Welcome.
Hi.
It's great to be with you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
I think it's, I've known you since I've been a parish member for a long time, and you've served in this ministry, both of you, for quite some time. But I wonder, going back to where it all started, what called you to be a Eucharistic minister? You want to go first, Jeanne?
Well, I was commissioned in 1996. I was fortunate for the better part of my life to have loving grandparents and a wonderful family. And as my grandparents age, I could observe the challenges that they met. Just before I was commissioned, I had a family member that was going through a terminal illness, and I could see the benefit of somebody coming into the home or into the hospital room, addressing spiritual and faith needs. Not long after, the pastor at the time here at Mid-South, at that time Sacred Heart, spoke with me about whether I would have an interest in pursuing ministry of the Eucharist, and I did. I didn't realize it. It was not something that I would have addressed with him ordinarily. It was timing. I think it was timing.
That invitation's so important.
That's right.
How about you, Bob? When did you get started?
Well, in my case, the call was literally a call. I was at work, and the phone rang one day, and a nice baritone voice on the end of the phone says, "Hello, Bob, this is Father Flynn from Sacred Heart Church." And all I could think of was, who's dead? The house burned down. What happened? What happened? Because how often does your parish priest call you in the middle of the day at work, after all? Mm-hmm. So they said, well, we were calling to see if you'd like to become a Eucharistic minister. But by that time, my nerves was totally shot from all the potentials that were running through my weak mind. And I said, sure,
That
Father.
was an easy yes.
It was. And that's where that started back in 1980, late 1980 sometime, I think.
Now, was that just for the liturgies, or did he have homebound in mind when he invited you at that time?
No, that was strictly for the Sunday liturgies.
Okay.
At the time, there wasn't, to speak of, there wasn't a lot of Eucharistic ministers to begin with, but I think most of the homebound was taken care of by the deacons. At the time, there was probably 5 deacons, I think, that we had going here. So they were the training school and the nursing homes and things like that.
And what year was that about?
About late 80s, 86, 87, somewhere in there.
Wow. So what experience do you feel that you have in being a Eucharistic minister? What is something that surprised you about that? Because you both responded to invitation, right? So, but what surprised you once you were? Did something surprise you?
What surprised me was what I take away from it. More recently, I've been more involved with the homebound or the skilled nursing facilities rather than the Sunday liturgy. And what surprises me is because I always figure, well, you know, I'm bringing something to these people, but I always take, more away from it than I take to it. Every time I go there, every Sunday or however often I'm on the schedule, I go to the nursing homes. We have a service, and everybody is just unbelievably thankful that we're there at all. And eventually, it occurred to me that we are a representative of the church. We are the church, essentially the official church. That, and at the time when I first started that, I said, well, you know, we'll go there, we'll distribute communion, and that'll be that. But there's much more to it than that.
That is very deep. How about you, Jeanne? Did something surprise you?
Very similar experience, although I came into ministry perhaps 7 years after you, and by invitation. I would have to say, Amy, that I considered it a great gift. And even today, there will be a person that would thank me for spending time with them and bringing communion to them in their home. And, I said, no, thank you, because it just re-energizes your faith. And I came to realize on a personal level through my own experience that there's a longing there when somebody can't come through the church doors for liturgy, whether it's short term or it's for a lengthy duration. And it's an important component to them. It's so meaningful for an individual, as Bob said, representing the church, that there's a sense of gratitude that's always expressed. But Bob and I have discussed this. We get as much, if not more, out of it from those relationships that are formed.
That's really so important to realize that that's a big part of this experience.
Yeah.
So when we think about ministry here and during a liturgy and serving that way, that kind of explains itself, I think, for most people that attend Mass. You can see that there's a Eucharistic minister that goes through a commissioning, a learning of what their role is and how to do it. But the part to the homebound, I think, is the one that remains a bit more challenging and a mystery. Now, I will say we need Eucharistic ministers within the liturgy. We need to invite new people into it, which is why we're here today, is to extend that invitation and to really express the need for it. But in your two cases in particular, focusing on the need to the homebound is even greater, and it's become so much more challenging in COVID. The facilities are open, they're not open, you can visit people in their home or you can't. You have to be very careful of the health that you're in always. But it is challenging, but it's a hardship in a way right now, I think, in our parish, that there's only a real handful of people that are visiting the homebound. So let's talk a little bit about where you go and what you do when you get there, so we can give people an idea of the commitment here.
Okay, primarily my concerns right now are River Glen and Pomperog Woods, the facilities here in town. And there's about a dozen or so Eucharistic ministers that help out at River Glen, and officially there's about 5 at Pomperog Woods, 2 of whom are at the moment not able to do that right now. So that means there's 3 of us. Right at the moment, that means basically you're on schedule every once or twice a month, depending on how the schedule works itself out.
So in the skilled care facility, you're going room to room and potentially doing a communion service if
Yes.
they're bringing people down to a common area. What's involved with the service?
Well, and the services probably are very similar to in either location, and the way I conduct it, and there's a little personal variations in each one, but I just start with the missalette. I do from the introductory rite up through the readings for the day, offer a short reflection, and invite anybody who's there to reflect along with me. From there, I would go to Prayer of the Faithful and jump from there to the Our Father and to the end of distribute communion and to the end of the service. The whole thing takes probably half an hour or thereabouts, I would say.
Okay, so that's once you're there, but you usually come to Mass and are sent forth from
Right.
the recessional,
right.
And so
And
that
there is some preparatory work, because it's not a good idea to show up and start to read the gospel if you haven't read the gospel before that. You'll stumble over the words, you won't have any idea what you're going to talk about. So there's however much time you want to put into it before the actual service itself to review the readings, the prayers that are involved in the day's readings, offer a little reflection on what do they mean to me, what effect do these readings have on my life here in Southbury, Connecticut in 2022?
Now that scares people right now,
Oh, yes.
because I
It
can
scares
just hear
me,
people
too.
right now saying like, forget it, I was with you until I had to preach. And
Preaching is a bit of a
yeah,
stretch.
and you know what's nice is if you come to Mass, you can get some insights from the homily as well. But mostly you can look at this in your own personal reflection, and no one is looking for you to lead, a homily in a service in the sense of the way that it's done in a Mass. You have a more intimate setting.
Oh, yeah.
there.
And Pomperaug Woods, for example, is probably typically 10 to 12 people would be there on any given Sunday. They're all sitting as close to you as we are right here, right now. So whatever involvement, my reflection there would be typically, here's what the gospel reading or the reading, here's the line that caught my attention today. What do you think? What, in any of the readings that we had today, have any bearing on your life, the life of the world, the life of the community at large?
And I think it's also worth saying that you don't have to start in the exact role that you're in. You can accompany someone who's been doing it for a while, and you can mentor someone
absolutely,
and get used to it and say, is this right for me? Give it a try.
Yeah. We wouldn't just, oh, you want to start
Yeah.
tomorrow, you're on schedule for tomorrow.
Right.
There would be a shadowing, I guess, for lack of a better term, shadow somebody for a week or 2 or 3. And that would give you some indication of the fact that everybody's a little bit different. There's some slight personal variations
Right.
on each person's take on how they perceive this. So there's nothing's cast in stone that says you have to do this or you're going to be spending your eternity in the eternal fires. But there's some tweaking around that's a possibility.
That's great. Jeanne, how about you? I know you do a lot of one-on-one visits.
Yes, I do engage at River Glen specifically, most especially during the pandemic. I didn't see the wisdom of going from facility to facility to facility. And they were all operating based upon what was going on within their 4 walls anyway. So we would start bringing communion to River Glen or to Pomperaug, and then if there was an incident of illness there of any kind, years before it was the flu or something else, it would be halted until the vast majority of people returned to good health. For those at home, I'd have to say I go back in part to the training that we received, because it was a booklet that was given to us that was a guide, much in the way the missalette is. And when it's one-to-one or there's a family member there, it's a bit more intimate. I'm not preaching in the same way. I'll often draw from the readings, of that weekend. But additionally, try to bring it into a meaningful and more personal approach with that individual. And we go through that process that's been recommended and is tested, tried and true. But over time, perhaps it's just a little less formal. Over time, this becomes rote. We know where it begins, where the middle is, and how it ends. I walk in, and certainly before anything is started is just to ask, how are you doing, and how was your week? To, again, week to week to week, reestablish that connection. And as it wraps up, we speak about, what may be upcoming that week. I'll always bring a bulletin with me as well. I think it's important, whatever the status is of that person, to keep them as engaged in the parish and what's going on. Keep them engaged as much as possible.
And you bring bulletins or whatever
Yes,
handouts there are.
exactly, the little black
Yeah.
book for this period of time during Lent, absolutely. And if a person is, not up to par physically, then we reschedule, and I'll go over there. And I have a little more flexibility in my schedule now than when I was working full time. But it's very rewarding, and some of these relationships can go on for an exceptionally long time. It might start with a parishioner who, let's just say the wife comes to church, but the husband has an ailment. Maybe he's recovering from a surgical procedure or something of that sort. So I would go to the home during that same time. And in one particular case I have, the husband passed away a few years ago, but now the wife is very, very frail, and she will not be back at this church to celebrate in any way, shape, or form. So it's important for us, and I think Father Joe in his time said, we're the church, and we bring church to the people, whether they're part of this assembly here, and or it's in a nursing home or rehab facility, or in an individual private home.
What can you infer in your experience when people receive communion? How do you read the experience for them?
Gratitude, joy. They're provided with a period of time to pray privately, and I'm doing the same. I presume you do as well. And then when they're ready to move on, they let us know. It's a subtle signal, but it's there. It's absolutely there. So I would say, for anyone contemplating this, the book is the guide, much in the same way the missalette is.
How about you, Bob?
Well, I think one thing that we do have to remember whenever we do this, we may be the only people that these folks see for a week, or many days and days at a time may go by. They may be homebound, the family may be distant from them, and we may be the only company that they see all week. You have to keep that one in mind, I think, because sometimes people grab that and keep you longer than you might be comfortable being there. But as Jeanne said, they're the ones that really have to set the time frame for the meeting. And as she also said, they'll let you know when it's time to go.
Imagine there's this moment of peace too that is part of that whole
Absolutely.
experience. You can see it here in a liturgy. At that time, I can just only imagine that in a homebound situation or nursing home, because you had spoken about that longing for it. I wonder what encouragement we can give people to get involved in this without scaring them away of a commitment. Because this is bringing church out, and it takes a bit of time, but maybe a once-a-month commitment is something that people might consider doing.
I don't think once a month would probably be a reasonable time frame to fit into. The nursing homes, normally, if we had the full contingent of people, that would normally be the procedure, once a month, maybe once every 6 weeks, depending on how the schedule worked itself out. It's not like you're committing your life to this. You're not going to spend the rest of your life visiting people with bringing communion. But you have to ask yourself, is there more to being a Eucharistic minister than celebrating Mass on Sunday and distributing communion at the Mass, when there's so many people around town that are desperate to receive the sacrament, and for one reason or another can't? And you, me, Jeanne, whoever has an opportunity to bring the life of Christ to these people. Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
And through many, so much is accomplished. And so if we can just build our pool of Eucharistic ministers and get them trained to go into a homebound situation, that would be wonderful. Other than being trained and commissioned as a Eucharistic minister, it's really about protecting God's children, and really for vulnerable adults version of that that we have to go through. So we can't visit people in their homes or go into facilities in this role on behalf of the church without that training. And that's right now wonderfully online, and it's, a maximum 3-hour training session that's good for all of us to do if we're going to be working in the church, and good things to be aware of. So in conclusion, what have we missed, or what is something that you want to say to people to, one more time, encourage them to be a part of this?
Well, I would have to say that it's just walking and taking it step by step. If somebody was newly commissioned and, their focus is, participating in that ministry, being here on the altar, that's a great place to start. It allows you to establish a comfort level with someone perhaps that you don't even know, and approach them with this gift. I certainly didn't go from 0 to 60. I started here in the church. Bob invited me, and I started, I think, with Christmas and Easter Masses to distribute communion. In that case, it was room to room on major holidays, major liturgical holidays. I can honestly say, and then I began reading, sometime later, and then, somebody got out the hook and said, try it. And I had, by that time, had an opportunity over a couple of years to see how everyone's take on a personal reflection was just a little bit different. And that's the important thing. It becomes personalized as well. What's important is that we're reaching those individuals, whether it's 1 or 20. We're reaching out to them and connecting with them on a deeply spiritual level. But again, you don't have to start with 0 to 60. If you have an interest in the ministry, there are loads of people here that can address questions that a person might have. And then it will evolve. There are a lot of people that serve on the altar that obviously don't go outside of the church to engage with individuals. But I said it to Bob long ago, it's like the best kept secret because of how personally fulfilling it is for those of us that have engaged in the ministry and experienced it.
A true example of being the body of Christ, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. My suggestion would be just to talk to the people that are doing it now, get some feel for, because I'm sure that Jeanne and I don't have the only, we don't have a lock on all the thinking that goes into this. Everybody's going to give a slightly different perspective, but as Jeanne said, it's the best job in the church. Because you're actually away from the church, and you're not subject to the usual hierarchical restrictions and all this other kind of stuff. It's not too formal. It's whatever you want to make it to be. It's a wonderful opportunity to get to meet people that are going to be very happy to see you every time you go to visit them. Very happy to see you. Try it. You might like it. But talk to the people that are doing it now. If you want to just follow them around, I don't think anybody would object to you being the shadow even before you become a Eucharistic minister. But generally speaking, they would typically start at Mass. Get through all the paperwork and the training and whatnot, serve at Mass for a few weeks, and then find out more about what's going on in the at-home visits or the skilled nursing facilities.
That's great. Thank you both for your incredible service, long, dedicated ministers. We really just such a pleasure to hear from you today. We talked about, some of the facilities, but there's also Lutheran Home, Pumperog Woods, Middlebury Convalescent Home. There are more facilities that are serviced by the parish. And so this is not meant to exclude any of those or even of any of the ones that I haven't mentioned. But it really is a wonderful opportunity to extend our mission as a church out into our local community and to think of, Southbury particularly being the largest community of retired people in the state. There's a real need here. And so we'd love to support you and your ministry as we go forward. So if anyone has any questions, you can certainly reach out to me. I'm here all the time. And you can call me or email me. All my information is in the bulletin under Amy Conlon. And certainly you can catch any one of the Eucharistic ministers at Mass, and they can give you their insight and why they serve. So thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank
God
you.
bless you both.
Thank you.